Thanks for coming in, Pottery people. Just got a couple of things here clicking on. So we got a couple weeks here in January. As you maybe recall from way back in the first timeline. Hey, no problem, BJ. No problem at all. Thanks for coming in. I do appreciate it. As you may recall from the original timeline that we started in, January was pretty chill. You could finish the projects you had going, do some presentations, whatnot. Very chill time. A lot of fun. Unfortunately, we got to kind of make other plans this January. And basically, that just involves coming up with more stuff to do. Probably next week, the week after, we'll probably do some some heart-shaped box kind of project stuff. So that'll be fun. We've done that before, the heart-shaped box. Before we do that, this is kind of like a review, kind of slab review kind of project. Making these utensil strainers or silverware strainers or whatever you want to call them. I think I put a link in the chat to an image of one. And they are usually this sort of shape is a throne shape. And, oh, thanks, BJ. And usually this shape is thrown when you see things like this. It's fun to throw this kind of thing. You kind of have like a weird center thing you throw, and then there's like a little outer thing you throw. It's kind of fun to do. But you can achieve a shape like that with hand building techniques, and that's pretty much what we'll do today. As you see, I have two sizes here. This one's maybe more for utensils because it's wider. And this one's more for the bathroom, I'm thinking, like toothbrush caddy kind of thing. It's narrower. You know, that's pretty much the only difference. They're the same height. This one doesn't have a foot yet, so it's maybe a little bit shorter. But we're going to put a foot on this today. And it'll be the same height as this one. But yeah, basically some soft slab technique review. So nothing too crazy. Very useful projects. This is what the foot looks like on the bottom of this one. So they're pretty fun. And that's what we'll do. It might not take the whole class, but I got some videos pulled up and stuff like that too. Something that I haven't really decided yet is whether or not these need to be like tipped in some way. So like right now it sits flat, right? And probably that's good enough. Like I bet like water can more or less come out of this. But, you know, I can't help but think that maybe it needs to be just tipped ever so slightly to really encourage that water to flow out of this thing. But yeah, if you see, it doesn't look like the ones that people make. It doesn't seem like they do that. It seems like they're just kind of oriented upright. They don't do a tip or anything like that. So we'll see. It might be interesting to try. but it also might end up just looking too goofy and not really right. So yeah, exactly. Like just the, but you know, the thing is about that, BJ, is that the slight tip, you have this thing where if it's just very slightly tipped, you know, maybe it just looks wrong. Like it doesn't look like it's, you know, done on purpose or something, you know? So it's like this weird balancing act here. Like, should I tip it? Will it look all right if it's tipped? Will it look like it's screwed up or something? Like, what's the deal? Basically, I think I just got to do it, see what it looks like, and then, you know, go from there. Dominic, thanks for coming in. Right? Don't you think? Maybe that's just me that thinks that. But that's my worry is that if it's just a little bit tipped, it'll look weird. But we're gonna do it. We're gonna do it and see anyway. So that's the that's my plan. I'm gonna put these over here, put them in a bag, let them sit for a little bit. So 1 second, I'll do that. Oh shit. The spout, Dominic, is theoretically you put the you orientate those forms on the side of your sink with um, the spout overhanging at least a little bit so that water from the utensils kind of drains out and drips into the sink ideally. Oh yeah, before we get started, this was one of the other pieces from some firing I did over the break. This one didn't make it, as you can see, but it got some cool coloration on it. So I kept this chunk because I just like the coloration, I guess. This was one of those serving snack tray kind of pieces, if you recall. It was like football shaped. It had this divider down the middle of it, so you could have two different kinds of nuts or whatever in there. But this one didn't make it. I'm assuming it was a moisture thing. But yeah, I'm not 100% sure actually. Yeah, this one did not survive. Um, yeah. Yeah, that one, it has some nice like salmony pink kind of colors on it. I fired a pot, a couple of those pipes. Yeah, that's not a bad idea, Dominic, to do the hole straight on the bottom. I guess the only thing there is that the water, you'd have to maybe do something so that like the water can still get away from the stuff, though. You know what I mean? Either that or do something like a flower pot where like you have the holes on the bottom and there's like a removable plate or basin. Maybe something like that could work out. Oh, really? Well, hopefully, let me know if the stream is not. Let me know if it's choppy, if it's not getting better. Hopefully, it's all right. So yeah, I mean, I feel like if you do the hole on the bottom, you just have to make it so the plate is removable. On these ones, that plate's not removable. It's like part of the piece. So it's It's like part of the piece there. You see that? But yeah, I mean, I'm thinking that if you did it like a flower pot with a removable plate, that would work, right? Let me know if the stream's not unfreezing, if that's possible. Saw some people dropped. I'm gonna put it in the chat. It's working all right. Okay. All right. So basically, kind of some review. If you haven't done clay for a couple weeks, it's a good place to start. Kind of just warming up, do some review kind of stuff. Not necessarily anything too mind blowing. The first thing we'll do here is make a cylinder. And for that, we're going to roll out a slab that's going to be rectangular. And the paint mixing sticks are a good thickness for the slab. So you can use your standard issue paint mixing sticks that are 1/4 of an inch thick. The length that we're going to need here for the wider kind of utensil strainer one, that wider one has a diameter of 4 inches. So the rectangle itself needs to be 12.5 inches long in order to end up that wide. The more narrow one is, I think that's 3 inches in diameter. So that one ended up being like 9.5. So we'll just see how long of a slab I can get here and go from there. Okay, but it's working now, Dominic. That's good. That's good, as long as it's not on my end, because if it's on my end, it's, as we've learned, there's pretty much nothing that I can do. Yeah, I mean, this area, Golden Hill, like literally every single day, there is a Cox van or an AT&T van messing around with the utility boxes within a block or two of my house. So it's like, if my internet stops working, I'm pretty much at their mercy, you know. Unfortunately, I don't know how it, because from the sound of it, like literally everyone else's internet works fine all the time. So I guess it's like, it doesn't make sense. And there's a ton of faculty that live in this neighborhood too. Like, if you walk around, you see all sorts of, the parking passes, the faculty parking passes and stuff. I mean, I guess not really so much anymore, but in the original timeline, I'm going to refer to that as the Hillary timeline from now on. The Hillary timeline, you could walk around and it was just like every other car was like a faculty parking pass in this neighborhood. So I don't know what those people are doing for online classes. They doing a lot of work over by YouTube, BJ? Well, don't worry. We'll make them pay. We'll make them pay someday. All right. So my clay's kind of stiff. It took me a second there to roll that out. Okay. So a little bit of moisture and then some ribbing on the surface. And hopefully that'll help us to avoid surface cracks as we form this cylinder and stuff like that. And also, if you're using recycled clay, the compressing makes the air bubbles a lot more visible. So that's very useful. All right. So on this slab here, I'm making a long line, and then I am making marks at 0 and then at 12.5 inches. So 0 and 12.5. So this will be the wider utensil caddy sized vessel, hopefully. So this is long line, 12.5 inches. And then we're going to make this rectangle 4.5 inches tall. Okay. Sha-na-na-na-na-na-na-na. Okay. Well, this one looks a little bit askew, so I'm going to straighten it out a touch. Okay. So this rectangle, 12.5 inches long and 4.5 inches tall here. And this will make for a good utensil sized strainer. 12.5 by 4.5, 1/2. All right. So, who knows what we do next? Yes, Benjamin in Tahoma. What do we do next? I'm just kidding. We're going to bevel this edge next. Use an X-Acto knife for this beveling. Like I said, a whole lot of review today. I don't think there's really any new information today as far as like making these things. It's just a purely kind of like an idea kind of thing. Okay, so bevel, score where you beveled there, fork, X-Acto knife, whatever. Okay. Then we're going to pick this up carefully, flip it over. And bevel this opposite edge here. Kind of a weirdness going on there. All right. And then you're going to do the same deal, score this beveled angle. Fork, X-Acto knife, whatever. A little bit of everything. There's like a chunk of leaf in this clay, so I'm just removing it. So yeah, you may recall when you build these cylinders, you can stand them up like this, and then typically it's a little bit easier to get these two edges stuck together if you kind of oval it like this first. You don't really have to, but I've typically found that they just kind of they're a little bit friendlier if you do that. After you get them stuck together, you can kind of reorient it the way you want. I gotta find my slip brush. Slippy brush. Slip brush, come home. Okay. Okay, so I like to slip up this edge here. All generously like that. And then yeah, like I said, for me, I've found that kind of making an oval like this just helps me get this stuck together. Hopefully the bevels look something like this. So you have a nice kind of even width as you look around the wall of the piece. But as long as they're kind of close, it's all going to work out. Everything will be just fine. So yeah, just kind of sticking that stuff together. And then you can reorientate this piece however you like. Reshape it. Make it a square, make it a square, make it a circle, make it whatever you want. If you pick it up and flip it over, just make sure you kind of pick it up like this. See how I mean, if you pick it up like this, you can kind of do whatever you want with it. But if you start picking it up like this, yeah, you don't want to do that. If you start picking it up like that, the piece will not last much longer. It's just too stressful. It gets all pinched and uneven, and it's a real tragedy. Many such occasions. All right. So I'm more or less happy with that. Got it stuck together good enough. And this tube has a diameter of 4 inches. So that's pretty much what I said we were going to aim for there. And that's what you get. For the bottom, we're going to roll out another slab. And basically make a little plate, make a little saucer kind of thing. From what I've experienced so far, the circle for the plate on the bottom, it needs to be 2 inches wider in diameter than the cylinder. So if this is 4 inches in diameter, let's make the saucer for the bottom 6 inches. That way we have an extra inch on either side for bending and making the little containment zone, whatever you'd call that. So let me pull this up and show you. So you need that extra inch on either side there for making this part. So 4 inches across, 6 inches across at the bottom. My canvas is really damp from that first slab. I'm worried that if I roll more onto there, it's going to get really stuck. Poor bee. Okay, roll out some clay. Sorry, there's an insect fascinating me over here to the left. Okay, so we need this to be a slab. See if we can get a 6 inches diameter circle onto this. All right. Oh, sorry about that. I apologize. The table should be more or less stable now. Hopefully. All right. So some more review here. Making the compass, the clay compass. I might have to go grab a toothpick here. Okay. So the clay compass, the piece of cardstock. You can use the strip off your cereal box or whatever. And basically you're just going to make a series of holes in it. You need at least 2 holes. You need one for the middle, and then you need another one somewhere out here so that when you rotate it, you can make a line. So in our case, we're going to need a middle hole. And then if we want this plate to be 6 inches in diameter, we're going to need a hole that's like 3 inches away from the middle hole. So that's going to be this one over here. And I cannot find my second toothpick, so I got to run in and grab another toothpick, but I'll be right back. Okay. So yeah, the clay compass review, cardstock, 2 toothpicks, 2 holes, and you can make a circle you want to. And then, I try to make light lines when I do this in the clay, just in case I screw something up and that sort of thing. But it is what it is. Whatever you can get going. Basically, just take your time. It's not totally foolproof, but it'll work well. So hopefully this circle will be a good size for that cylinder. Did I compress this slab first? I think I forgot to compress this slab, so it's not the end of the world, but you should definitely compress the slab. So put some water on it and do the squeegee thing. Definitely always want to do that. I think I just forgot to do it on this one. So we'll see. Cool. Yeah, the cheaper the better. You know what, BJ? You know what's up. Okay, so you got your disc, you got your cylinder now. Let's see, it's going to look something like this at first. Top hat kind of thing. There's one trick you can do if you're finding it's hard to kind of locate this into the middle of your disc. Something you could do, which I didn't do, but you definitely can do this, is you can actually put a guidance line. I don't know if that's the best word for it. You can put a light line keyword light like this. Yeah, I should just rebrand this class to David's How to Do Pottery as Cheap as Possible class. But you put a light line like that, and you can use this light line to center this piece a little bit. It can be pretty useful, actually. So that's something you can do. I mean, the cheapest way is that guy. I show his videos all the time, Andy Ward. His way is probably the cheapest way of doing it because half of the stuff he does is on public land or whatever. Like he drives out into the national parks where no one is and digs up clay and gets wood and stuff. So honestly, that guy's probably even a better resource for how to do this cheap and questionably legally. Cheap and with questionable legality. Because I still buy clay. I still buy the clay like a statist, like some kind of scumbag statist over here. But what can you do? Okay. So we're going to score this ring really well. This ring is where the cylinder will stick to that disc. You're going to score the lip of this cylinder. Oh yeah, I almost forgot. Okay, so score, very impressive, very good. So something I almost forgot about this. This Tom and Jerry style mouse hole down here, right there. It's possible to cut that after this is stuck to this. It's possible. It's not impossible. But it's definitely, you could cut this before you put this down. So if you want to cut that mouse door, you could do that now. You don't maybe have to, but it's way easier to deal with if you do it now. Alternatively, you can place this down, and then before you bend this disc at all, you could cut it. But you definitely want to cut it before you bend the disc at the very least. At the very least. So tell you what, we'll go ahead and cut it out now. I mean, the thing about, even if you place this onto here and don't bend up this and you're going to cut it, you still have to deal with getting that door kind of unstuck from the disc. So I think probably the ideal thing to do is cut the door now before you put it down. But yeah. This mouse door is a I made by tracing around a quarter. So if you're feeling ambitious like that, you can trace around a quarter. I'll grab a quarter from inside real quick. I don't have scissors. That praying mantis from a couple weeks ago is back. It's climbing all over the extension cord over there. I'll unhook and show you guys in a second. Quarter. If you really are ambitious about this, if you want to, you can trace around a quarter and then cut this out. And this, it's probably a good idea to do the paper quarter. That doesn't even come through, does it? It probably is a good idea to do this if you're going to cut out a bunch of circles, because it's a lot easier to place a piece of paper circle onto something and trace around it than a quarter, because the quarter doesn't bend around the cylinder. So it has a little bit of it tends to have a little bit of play there. So if that's something that's important to you, think about it. I have not been using paper. I've just been tracing around the quarter because I'm too lazy to do this, but might as well. We got time. Okay, come on. Cut this out so we can go look at the mantis. Oh shit, it's crawling all over the place over there. Okay, I'm gonna unplug this real quick. We're gonna go look at that mantis. We're gonna take a little break. We're gonna go look at a praying mantis. Up your imagination. I'm hoping that the camera is on the mantis. Isn't that cool? Look at that fucking crazy thing. Is that thing on the thing? Damn, look at that. I know, right? I know, look at the size of this thing. It moved fast. I thought it was going to come for me. Oh, fuck, dude. That's awesome. It started giving me the look. So I was like, all right. I think it's the same one from a week or two ago. Yeah. I don't think so. It's still really gray looking. Maybe that's just how it looks. Yeah, I think that's the same one from a couple weeks ago. That thing's crazy. And then I got my little bee that's over like in hospice care over here. It's slowly fading away. David's what's that? David's flea circus of tragedy. Yeah, I know that's maybe they do, maybe they don't, BJ. I don't know. David's tragic flea circus over here. Gotta administer last rites to this fucking bee in a second. All right. I think we can. Oh, wait. What was I going to do? The quarter thing. I forgot. I'm sorry. All that excitement. Quarter thing. Okay. So, tracing around a quarter to get a little template guy here. And then we can use this template to make our circles. So the paper, it's pretty good. I mean, you could just use the quarter if you want. Either way. The quarter just doesn't stick as well, and it doesn't bend on the clays, of course. So using paper might be a little bit easier to trace around. And the only circle you need to do is just this bottom Tom and Jerry kind of one. This bottom mouse door. And then you bend it all up when you try to move it. Okay. So I would recommend it, and I think that really this is like the best time and maybe the only time to get this little hole cut in a manner that is like, nice, and you don't have to desperately try to fix it afterwards. Because if you get this thing stuck down and you try to do it, it's possible, but you have to spend so much time cleaning up the kind of dirtiness and stuff like that it's you really want to do this now, pretty much is the point I'm trying to make. Okay. Okay, I might have to scoot this back a little bit so I can see it. So this width is nice because you can get your hand in here, and that makes kind of positioning and adjusting things a lot easier because you can get your hand down in there and kind of coerce things around. The more narrow one, it's not too hard, but you have to use like the back of a paintbrush stick or something if you need to get something positioned, because you can't get your hand into it if it's too narrow, of course. All right. Very cool. Very cool. Very stuck together. So something you can do now is basically we're going to bend up the edges of our little disc down here, and the vertical seam from the cylinder, if you want to do a little bit of smoothing on that, you can do that. Basically just a little bit of Frankenstein stitching like that, a little bit of slip. Okay. Some squeaky brakes going on out there. Sorry if that's coming through on the microphone. The vertical seam from the cylinder, for the most part, you can smooth those away. It kind of depends a little bit. If you have gaps or something, you may need to end up putting a coil into there. But usually the vertical seam it's friendly enough and kind of clean enough that you can kind of just smooth it with your various rib tools and the rounded edge of your wooden tool, your wooden modeling tool, or whatever the hell that thing's called. Cool. Okay, so without further ado, and before this gets too dry, let's go ahead and bend our disc. I'm just putting a little bit of slip down here to mostly just to add some moisture. You know, you don't have to, BJ. It's kind of up to you. You could put the mouse door pretty much anywhere. I think on a piece this size and for a hole like that, I don't think it really is going to matter. If you have, like, if that little joint, if that's like kind of ugly down there or something, you could do this kind of, you can kind of do it on purpose to get rid of that. Like if you have if your joint's kind of ugly down there or something, you just remove that spot. But yeah, this piece, there's not too much deal either way. There's other, instances where size or shape of the hole or something is going to be maybe important, and you don't want to do that on the seam. But I think in this one, you're fine wherever you do it. Good question. And then, otherwise, this corner area on that mouse door, it'll be kind of soft. So you got to be a little bit careful there, because you can kind of accidentally bump that or something and mess it up. So be a little bit gentle with that area. Okay, so you figure you're not going to bend the part of the spout that's like right in front of that hole, but otherwise, I would just take your hands like this, put them up against the cylinder, and then just kind of gently bend the piece. Keeping in mind, you don't really try not to pinch it and force it like that. You really try to bend it without pinching as much as possible. Like the way I have my hands, it might look like I'm doing some pinching, but I swear I'm not. Try not to pinch. And then the area right in front of the hole, you can kind of start to form that into a spout. I'm trying to look in the video to see if I'm doing it evenly. Okay. Okay, so after you bend the disc around like that, probably the best course of action is going to be just to let it stiffen up a little bit, flip it over so that the disc doesn't keep trying to flop open on you, especially if your clay is really fresh. This disc it's not going to want to hold the shape for very long. My clay is kind of stiff just because it's been recycled, and I've used this clay from the bag with the bag open for this past week, so it's kind of gotten a little bit of stiffness to it. But if your clay is fresh, this disc, it'll already be bending down by now. So kind of just get it oriented the way you like, and then flip it over and let it stiffen up upside down for like half an hour maybe. So I'll set this aside, and we'll put a foot on one of the other ones that we got going here. And by the time we're done with that, we'll be able to kind of do some more work on this first one here. Okay. So I got my toothbrush sized utensil caddy. This one's the more narrow one. I think this one's a little bit better for like bathroom usage, it seemed like. But the same height, just a little bit more narrow. And we're going to put a foot on this underside here in this ring area. Okay. Or at least we are in like 1 minute. I'm going to run inside real quick and I'll be right back. All right, sorry about that. Drinking too much coffee this afternoon. Okay, so I'm going to roll out a coil, put it along this base like a ring. Oh, God. Rolling out a coil. If you have leftover slab, you can cut out just like a long strip instead of rolling a coil here. And basically, just like a kind of average sized coil, I guess. I don't know, not too small. Probably about 1/4 to 3/8 of an inch in diameter. This coil here. Yeah. That's probably going to be long enough there. All right, so this coil here, make sure you score a ring along the underside of this disc kind of thing. So it looks like a couple more people have come in since the beginning of class, so I'm just going to repeat some of the stuff I said early on. We have 2 more classes after this, and then spring semester starts. I don't know if this class has a break or not. I don't think this class does. I could be wrong. As far as like the rest of the semester, these next 2 weeks, I'm going to probably do the heart box project, the heart-shaped box project, which probably people have memories of from past semesters. But if you have requests or something, go ahead and get those into me. And, it's not really set in stone. We can do whatever. Today, we're making a utensil strainer. Basically, some review, slab review, soft slab. Okay, I needed to add a little bit of scoring there. Let's see. And yeah, so we get to the end here. cut it at a bevel so that hopefully it overlaps pretty seamlessly with the beginning of the coil. And certainly you want to make sure you score that underside. Don't forget to do that. Pull out any loose hairs. Okay. I'm gonna go shut my door before that praying mantis gets in there. I'm trying to. Click. It's like doing that like really slow kind of little reaching thing at my opening of my door. slowly making its way in. All right, I'm going to go along the outer part and the inner part of the coil and do this thing. Pat it down a little bit too. Yeah, see, now it's sitting on my doorknob. Like it's like I got there just in time. Crisis averted. Of course, now I can't get back inside. Oh, man. Okay. I'm going to use my rib tool here, smooth this joint out. And that'll more than likely be good enough for this. You don't really have to do the little coils. And we'll do the little tiny connector coils, the reinforcement coils. When we go back to that first one, we'll put a reinforcement coil into that area and also the inner area. But you don't really have to do that with the foot. It's not really required. At least not on a piece this size. And then a very similar kind of thing on the inside. And, I'm just using this rounded edge on my gift card rib tool. The rounded edge that gift cards and credit cards and debit cards have. Very good for this. It has just the perfect amount of arc to work on the little 90-degree angles and stuff like that. Put this up. And that's where the end and the beginning of the coil overlap there. It's not a bad idea to do a little bit of compressing on this foot, kind of like this. Just kind of a little bit of a press downwards. Okay, and then just lightly one more pass. Inside, outside. And then we'll do a little bit more on this one before we go back there. You see the door jamb area. Let's see if I can get that on camera. Let's go ahead and clean up this door jamb kind of area in here. Basically, we'll put a little slug of a coil on both sides. Like right where my X-Acto knife's pointing there, and then also the other side. And that should be good for that. So just those little tiny slug kind of dudes is all I'm using there for the what I'm calling the door jams. The door jam thing. And using my X-Acto knife, I can kind of just position it in there, and then using another tool or something, kind of just back it off so it stays in there. It takes a little bit of finagling, but you see it down there now, I think, right? Get that on both sides. I had another one somewhere today. What did I do with it? And now just carefully use this. I have a chopstick here. And honestly, a chopstick would not be a bad tool to use for this. Preferably a wooden one. This plastic one, it kind of sticks to the clay and stuff like that. But it's not too bad for getting into this really narrow area. Smoothing those coils in and stuff. The mantis is gone. So if I get killed, it's probably the mantis sneaking up behind me. Okay. So it's a little bit of a tricky situation getting that inner mouse door smoothed. But if you, well, something that might be useful to do is kind of tightly rolling up the sponge like that, because then you might be able to get it in there enough that you can kind of corkscrew it like this, and you might be able to do a pretty good amount of smoothing that way. You'll see see how it just kind of comes through a little bit in there. But it's such a weird little area. You probably will have to use your fingers to do the kind of final touches and stuff like that. So getting a tool into there is just kind of weird, because your fingers, you can bend them just the perfect amount and kind of force them in there and stuff. But yeah. So basically, just be gentle. You don't want to like dig down into the surface whenever you're doing stuff here, because you want the if there's like little pool areas, little what are those called? Well, there's like little divots and stuff. Then it's going to impede the water from being able to flow, because there'll be like little spots where the water can collect and stuff like that. So try not to dig down into the disc. Be kind of gentle about that. And I mean, if there's like a little bit of stuff, you can carefully trim it off. The inside edge might be kind of hard to deal with, especially on a narrow one like this that you can't really get your hands into. So be prepared to use like the back of a paintbrush or other kind of tools that you can kind of get in there and carefully smooth and even the surface out. So it's starting to look better down there, if you can see that or not. It's really hard to get that angled right for the camera. And those tool kind of marks, those can be hard to get rid of. So if you get a stiff brush with some slip on it, you can use that to kind of smooth out the tooling marks down there. So, you know, you don't want there to be a whole lot of slip on here, a little bit, but not too much. So kind of like you can clean it off on the canvas a little bit first. But you use that brush that has just a little bit of slip in there. You can kind of use it like a smoothing tool. And that can be really useful because it's super hard to get into there otherwise. I wonder if you can come in this way. Oh yeah, you might even be able to kind of come in through the front door a little bit. Okay, I'm gonna put this one on the side. There's a little bit more refining stuff to do here, cleaning up the top edge and stuff, but for the most part, I think we've done what we needed to do here. Set this one aside and work on that first one a little bit more. But this one's, it's kind of to that range of completion where all you have to do is just refine it, get rid of like stray errant tool marks and stuff like that. Do this sort of thing on the inside of those holes to get rid of the tool marks from cutting them. Can you see the sponge in there? There's a part of me that wants to like cut this sponge in half because like for this project, it's like just a slightly smaller sponge to get into some of these other areas would be pretty clutch. But I'm not going to do that because I need this sponge, so I can't do it. But that's definitely something to think about, is cutting a sponge in half so you can use it to get into some of the narrow crevices on a project like this. Okay. This guy, it's stiffened up in these past 20 minutes or so. So let's go ahead and cut out some holes and knock this guy out. All right, I got this quarter-sized paper template here. And I'm going to place, I've been doing 6 holes on these. Totally optional. You can do 0 holes. You can do several holes. You can do whatever you want. One of the students from earlier in the week made the point that having the holes in the sides will help the air circulation and help the utensils dry out. And I think they're right about that. So I think it's probably a good idea to put some holes in here, additional holes. Like I said, not required though. Like if you ever worked like in a restaurant in the kitchen area, washing pots and pans and stuff, the utensil cylinder things, they're like these metal cylinders with holes all along the surface of them. So it's definitely I mean, it must be good. It must work for something if they're doing that. Evenly placing these holes and stuff like that, the way I've done it so far is basically I figure that the holes would look, good about like here or so, like right along the middle. And it just so happens that I can use my paint mixing stick to kind of plan that out. So what I'll do is flip the form over, and I'll use my paint mixing stick on edge like this. Here, I'll put it on the other side. I'll put my paint mixing stick on edge like this, and then lightly make a line like this. And then I'll move the paint mixing stick, move the piece, and basically just kind of encircle the piece with this light line. Whoa. My paper quarter. So, kind of optional, but something like that can help you evenly line out your pieces. You may recall earlier in the semester, also, I had that paper template that was circular, and it had the radiating lines from the middle, kind of like bicycle spokes. And if you recall, I used that to evenly space the sgraffito carvings on on one of those round things. It was like the sugar jar, the creamer and sugar set. So that template for making evenly spaced carvings in the round would also be really useful for placing your circles, because you could place this, if you recall, the way that worked is you placed it onto the template with the lines coming out, and then you could line up the things with the lines. Yeah. I couldn't find what I did with that. I don't know if I accidentally threw that away or not. So unfortunately, not going to be able to use that today. So I'm just going to kind of eyeball my circles. So far, I've been pretty happy with putting one right over the Tom and Jerry mouse door, over Jerry's door there. I think I need to go this way like a 1/16 of an inch. So the paper's good because the paper sticks and stuff like that. It's pretty good. I mean, you can use a quarter, but you got to hold it in place and then eyeball it and stuff. So taking the time to cut out the little paper quarter, it's a good thing. It's a good thing. It's not going to hurt you, at the very least. Well, maybe it will. Paper cuts, actually, never mind. I don't want to get in trouble. It might hurt you. So lightly trace around that, and then we can plick it off. Plick, plick. Yeah, it should be all right. It's a Cyclops hat. So the way that you might think about trying to get 6 of the circles on there, if you want 6, is without that template, without the paper template to guide my placement here, I can, the top of the circle, let's just go ahead and do this. See this line here? So this line is directly above the circles there. And I can use this line here to plan out where I put the other ones, basically. So this is in your guys' 6 o'clock position, my 12 o'clock, and basically just straight across from that. Make another mark. So now you got 12 and 6 o'clock. And then if you want to do 4, you'll go ahead and do like 3 and 9 o'clock, like kind of like a clock, just kind of evenly space it based off that. I basically just totally eyeball it. So I just kind of guess. Like if I want to get 6 on there, I divide it I divide it in half with this and this mark. But then these two that are going to go over here, I just kind of guess. And then I'll look at it. And if one of them is dramatically bigger or smaller, then I'll, adjust from there. But that's pretty much how I do it if I have to do it by eye. If I have to do it by, just kind of guesstimating. But I mean, that's fine. It doesn't have to be perfect. So like this middle one's kind of longer than this one, sort of thing. So I'll take a little bit off there, and before you know it, it'll be pretty damn even, pretty darn even. So those are pretty evenly spaced, right? Not too bad. So basically, each one of those lines right below it, we'll do a circle. We'll cut those circles out. We'll have 6 circles. They'll be pretty evenly spaced, and that's good. That's good. All right, number 2, number 3, number 4. I'm going to move this one over a little bit. Hold on. So yeah, this is one of those occasions when notebook paper actually does pretty good for making a template. Mostly just because you want to be able to bend this little circle around. So cardstock might not like that. Licking that to get a little bit sticky. All right. Get this one last one on here. Okay, here we got 6 circles here. 6 little circles. 6 little circles. And yeah, just cut them out with the X-Acto knife. Take your time a little bit, but not too bad. Something about cutting weird shapes like this on a cylinder, it's, they always have kind of like a weird slant or something like that. So you got to just kind of take your time and then go back over it and even things out as you need to. We'll probably see some of that here on this first one. That's not too bad, but you see like that area there. That's what I'm talking about. Cutting something about cutting a 90-degree angle into a rounded form it's about as awkward as I guess you'd think it would be. So yeah, just kind of, it'll take like 2 passes usually, but you get that looking pretty even. All right, 4, 5, 6. The reason I chose 6 holes here, I mean, there's not really any good reason. Whatever you want to do, you don't have to do any. Like I said, it's totally optional. I think 6, it's just a good number that's like not too few, not too many kind of number. You know what I mean? All right, so you end up with 6 pretty evenly spaced holes like that. Very cool. So let's go ahead and put some. Basically, the plan here, we're going to do reinforcement coils along the outside and the inside. And at that point, this piece will probably be pretty much done for the day. But then I got the other one over there, and basically we'll take a look at that, and maybe we'll work on kind of seeing if we can get that tipped a little bit. Hey, Bob, thanks for coming in. Hope you had a good break. But that'll probably pretty much be the plan for this last little bit of class here. Right now I'm going along the joint where that cylinder meets the disc and adding some scoring. And we could do that on the inside too. The inside, I have a little bit of exposed scoring before, so it's not too bad, but I just want to make sure that I have enough down there. There's not any kind of non-scored parts of joint. All right, let's roll a couple of those little tiny reinforcement coils that we've done so many times before. So we're gonna get these nice and narrow here. Okay. So very narrow, spaghetti-like, spaghetti noodle almost. Angel hair. Try to get some moisture on there too. Okay. And I'm gonna put just a, just a bit. Try to dab some slip down in there. So the reinforcement coil thing, kind of like a couple minutes ago when I did the door jamb area. Um, the reason for that is for whatever reason that little spot stays kind of extra wet, so you might not be able to get this inner that kind of inner spot right there sealed up perfectly. You might have to put it in a bag and do that tomorrow after that dries a little bit, but you can definitely do the majority of this. So that's what we're going to do now. And basically, I'm just going to see if I can drop that down in there. And one of the reasons you need this coil to be really narrow is because it's a tight fit down there. So if the coil's too wide, it's not gonna want to go down into that gap well. So you got to make sure it's a nice narrow coil so you can really get it down in there. And then I'm using the back of my chopstick here to kind of ponce it in the rest of the way. All right. Cut off some of that extra stuff there. Okay, let's see what we got. So pretty cool, right? So we're going to do the inside also. Let's see. Before we do the inside, I'm just going to take my brush again here with a little bit of slip and just kind of work that joint area where the coil is sitting. Just kind of massaging that in there, making sure that there's no looseness or anything. And this will also help to get rid of the tooling marks and stuff. So it's pretty useful. Pretty useful technique. they'll have me do the ATM form, all the stuff that needs to be filled out. So, be kind of mindful of the door jam area. I'm calling it the door jam area where the Tom and Jerry kind of door is. Just because that corner, it just kind of tends to be a little bit extra moist from our assembly process and all that stuff. So be a little bit mindful of that. Don't like poke into it too hard or anything because you can pretty easily deform that at this point. Okay, so now we're going to do pretty much the same thing on the inside. So you don't need like the birth certificate to make a copy for the records. I know, I just asked him, said, I talked to Cabela's and they did that, so I was just curious. Okay. We'll try to play. Yeah. Okay, cool. That's all. All right, rolling out this other coil here. Take it easy, BJ. Have a good one. Okay, so I got my second tiny little reinforcement coil here. Putting a little bit of slip down into that joint. And, doing it again pretty much. The hardest part of these is getting them in there. Getting them in there without tearing them and all that sort of crazy crap that happens. All that crazy crap that happens. Yeah, see. Okay, come on. So basically try to drop it in there in kind of like a lasso kind of shape or something. And then if you're lucky, it'll let you direct it the rest of the way with the back of a paintbrush or whatever you can use. The long wood tool that comes in the toolkit. Whatever you got to use to get down there. I've generally found that a wooden paintbrush is probably the best thing here. I mean, if you can't get your hands in very well, you can at least get this thing in there and kind of poke it into the joint gently. I can get my hand in here though, so I'm going to use that. I'm going to use my hand, just kind of use my finger along the joint. Just kind of work that carefully. Try not to scratch it with my fingernail. Yeah, I can't get my finger in there without messing it up. Whoa, whoa. Okay, just gonna do a little bit more with my slippy brush here. Okay. Cool. So this is now ready to dry out a little bit. And then we'll put a foot onto it like our other guys. Refine it and stuff. I mean, as far as I would imagine, anything like this, you're almost going to have to put a foot on it because something that you're going to keep by the sink like that, since there's going to be so much water slopping around and that sort of thing. Yeah, you're going to need to have it elevated at least, a little bit to get it out of that. So I highly, highly recommend the foot. As far as I know, I don't really even think it's optional. I think you pretty much got to do it for this project. Okay, let's look at that first one here. Set this over here. Grab that first. Okay, so we got the first utensil strainer over here. And I think this first one was the exact size, right? Yeah, this should be pretty much the exact same size here. So, when I've seen these online, it doesn't seem like the typical wheel thrown utensil strainer or toothbrush caddy or whatever you want to call these things. It doesn't seem like they typically do anything as far as like tipping to make sure that the piece will drain. It seems like they generally are just flat like this. I could be wrong because I guess usually when you see a picture, it's just from the outside. So there might be some sort of internal slope or something. But as near as I can tell, they're just flat, and that must work well enough. Something I think that might be worth experimenting with, at least on my end. I don't know that you'd have to do this, but yeah, exactly, Bob. Something like that. Yeah, yeah. And you know, two rails or something that have a little bit of a wedge kind of shape or something. Yeah, exactly. The yeah, no, that totally makes sense, Bob. Absolutely. The only thing that a little bit makes me reticent there is that having a little bit of a tip like that, that's really the only thing that makes me reticent, is that just a little bit of a tip doesn't necessarily look super great, but I don't think it really matters. So yeah, like Bob said, something like where you put a bar back here, or maybe like two rails that are kind of wedge shaped. It's not a bad idea. If I want to try to make this ring style foot slopey, it's not going to be super easy, but I think it's possible. I do think it's somewhat possible. I might have to just do it on concrete, kind of like just kind of drag this on concrete a little bit, just to kind of give it a little bit of a kind of thing. My canvas is not grippy enough. I think if I do it on concrete, I can sand a little bit off and give it a little bit of a slope. Yeah, it's a little bit too. Canvas doesn't really do it. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to put this on the concrete, and I'm just going to try to hold it at a very slight tip like that, and then kind of sand it a little bit, kind of thing. And basically just see if I can give this a very slight tip. Here, I can angle this around. See if that will. No. Well, I just broke the foot off, so let's do the bar thing. Well, let's do the bar thing anyway here, because the ring foot can't be sanded anyway. It might be a little bit more receptive to that if it's dry, because you could maybe just sand it. But even then, I mean, if it breaks off then, you're pretty much screwed because you can't reattach it. So. All right. So let's do the slightly different foot on this one. Give it a little bit of a tip. And, you know, like I said, I think it's optional. As far as I can tell, online, the typically wheel thrown caddy thing like this seems to be pretty much flat. So, kind of optional. It doesn't seem like they usually worry about this too much. Yeah, if you wanted to put a gap in the ring, that's probably a good idea too there, Bob. Yeah, I don't see that being a bad idea. All right. So it's not too bad removing those. Okay. So I'm still going to do this basically with coils. All right, so I'm just scoring here where the ring's going to go. Partial rings. Now, probably something you're going to need to make sure of if you're doing a foot like this where you're going to have two separate parts or multiple parts is you want there to still be a good amount of foot here. You know what I mean? Because, utensils get kind of heavy. So if you only have like two little blocks of foot down here, it's going to be extremely tippy. So make sure, even if you're doing like not a complete ring, that you still have a lot of coverage down there. And basically, I'm just going to do 2 coils. Maybe even pretty much the same, but just cut one in half kind of thing. So this is going to be the standard 3/8 inch wide coil, about 3/8 inch. And it's going to be going up here, I guess. Fork. Oh, there it is. All right, score this coil up here. Paintbrush. Oh, where could you? Oh, there it is. All right, let's see here. All right, so just like we did with that first foot, go ahead and score a long joint like that. Oops, sorry, it's a little bit low. All right, I got my gift card rib tool over here. Gonna go over my joint where my foot meets the base here. Okay, got a coil half number 1 here. And basically, I'm just gonna trim like a, I don't know, maybe that's 1/8 of an inch. And I mean, probably if I let this dry out a little bit, that's the better kind of thing to do, and then cut it. But I don't really have all the time in the world, so we're just going to do it now. And looks like it's going to work out. Okay, so right now it's got like the opposite tip of what we want. See, it just like tips very slightly back this way. But we're going to put basically that coil on this side now, and it'll have just like a little bit of a slight tip towards the spout. And I think this is going to be a very good utensil strainer. So everybody's, everybody came together on this one, and I think we're going to have a nice product. Maybe move that. Well, I think the problem about having no foot in the front is that you still don't want it to like tip over because the utensils are kind of heavy and stuff, right? So I feel like you're still going to want to have foot on most of the bottom there, or else it's going to have like a weird tippiness to it. Okay, so basically same kind of coil this time. Once again, this time we're just not going to trim it after we put it on. Is it tippy now at just the 1 foot? Yes. All right, pretty much the same deal with this one. Okay, same deal. Okay, so just ribbing to smooth that joint out as well as we can now, at least while it's kind of wet. You can't do too much, but smoothing, a little bit of compressing. Oh, so yeah, that's pretty good. I think that would work. I mean, the you still need to have a little bit of lift in the front too, so the spout um, it has some clearance. Without the foot on the front, you're going to have a situation where it's basically balancing on the spout like that. And you won't be able to glaze it and stuff like that. But I mean, yeah, that seems like it's pretty much the way to do it, or some variants of that. Like either a straight bar or two halves of a ring, or some kind of variance, some kind of variety of this kind of idea. Very good. Slightly sized differently. So yeah, I think that's good. I think that's the way to do it. I mean, from what I've seen, and visually, I don't think it looks too weird. I mean, it looks a little bit, but it's not. It looks a little bit weird, but not too bad. Like, I don't think it looks distractingly weird. being like off kilter. So, yeah. I mean, as near as I can tell, like I was saying, from what I've kind of seen looking these up, is as near as I can tell, people don't really worry too much about tipping them. So they must work pretty well without doing that. So it's kind of optional. All right. Well, that's all I got today, guys. Yeah, it's something to think about. Something to think about for sure. Okay, guys, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up the stream. Thanks for coming in today. Have a good weekend. And I'll see you next time.